to the right-hand side. The building is also known as the House with the Blue Eyes because of the color of its windows. Maersk is one of Denmark's largest companies. The largest is Novo Nordisk, the guys behind the weight loss medication, Ozempic. Maersk is also one of the world's largest shipping companies, with over 110,000 employees worldwide. Further on the big tent, you can see Maersk's logo, a 7-pointed star. Officially, this represents the 7 seas, but sailors at Maersk like to say it's because they have to work 7 days a week. To the left-hand side, we have Nyhavn, which is a military area. It used to be the base for the Danish Navy, but the Navy has since moved out of town. So now we just have the military diving school, the Center for Sea Military Technology, and the military police. Here to the right-hand side, we have the Opera, which was built in 2005 after drawings from the Danish architect Henning Larsen. Sorry, that's to the left. If you go directly across the harbor, now to the right, you have Amalienborg Palace. Amalienborg was originally built in 1754 for 4 very rich noblemen. That's why it consists of 4 identical buildings. But it's now the royal residence. When a member of the royal family is home, the flag flies upon the palace where they live. We can thus see that no one's home today because there are no flags. As before mentioned, they're all on their annual royal cruise. The church in the background is called the Marble Church and has the largest dome. What you're drinking is called Gauderdansk, which means Old Danish. It's schnapps, which is kind of like schnapps, but I'd say there's a difference. And also, fun fact, this is the only alcohol I've ever thrown up from drinking. Do with that what you will. To the right-hand side, we have the Royal Playhouse. The first play that was performed here when it opened in 2008 was Shakespeare's Hamlet, which takes place at Copenhagen Castle, just 50 kilometers from here. We have Nyhavn, these iconic, colorful houses. Nyhavn used to be a very busy trading harbor, with ships coming in from all over the world, loading and offloading their wares at the quays. Back then it was also known for the cheap beer and prostitutes, let's not mince words. But it got a makeover in the 70s, and now it's one of Copenhagen's most iconic and beloved tourist traps. Sorry, tourist attractions, of course. To the right-hand side, we have Old Street Food Market, which means the street food market by the bridge, because it's a street food market by a bridge. Danish people aren't really that creative. It's pretty good though. I recommend the Argentinian food truck. We also have Popple, which has a bit more of a creative in it. This is a burger joint run by the same people who used to run Noma back in the day. Noma was, of course, the world's best restaurant like 6-ish years ago. However, the head chef there said that he had a feeling that when guests had waited for years and finally got served the 12 tiny courses with ants and leaves and all kinds of weird stuff, all they really wanted, in their heart of hearts, was just a good old-fashioned burger. So he opened Popple to serve exactly that. The burger costs 135 kroner. Not for money, just for a burger. 135 kroner. That I don't know why, but that makes me more incensed than like never being able to buy a house. 135 kroner. One burger. It's not even that good. All right, where are we? We are now sailing through Customs House. Now, Customs House means Christian's Harbor, and it's named after the guy who built it, King Christian IV. He did so over 400 years ago because he had two problems. Firstly, he had been ticking off the Dutch by tariffing them. If you look to the left after this bridge, you'll have a very good view of the tower of Our Savior's Church. It's a good time for a photo, but you have to be very quick. So get your phones ready now. And if you're on the right-hand side of the bridge, you can stand up afterwards to get a good view.
Ready? Ready? Do you know what? I'm short enough.
There were people on the top.
Yeah, you can walk all the way up. It's so cool. Maybe that's where my next run should be.
Probably a good spot.
Yeah. I think it's better than
The small red timber-framed house to the right-hand side is over 400 years old. That's because Kristiansand is a bit isolated from the rest of Copenhagen, so it wasn't burnt to a crisp quite as many times as the rest of our city. And for that reason, we have these exceptionally old houses. To the left-hand side, we have, well, we previously had a women's prison, but when that was torn down in the early 20th century, we built these two buildings instead. We have the sponge cake house further back and the layer cake house here. And I believe that they were built in some weird attempt to get people to drive slower. Not really sure how that was supposed to work, and also it didn't work. But I'm told that was the ambition to begin with. Please, my bridge. After the bridge, if you look behind you to the right, you can see a statue of a guy in a jumpsuit. This is a worker at the big Danish shipbuilding company, Burmeister and Wayne. Burmeister and Wayne employed like half of Copenhagen until it went bankrupt in the 90s. And it had a workshop right in front of us here to the right. So the statue of the worker is looking over to the workshop behind the dark green fence, making sure everything is as it should. Icelandic designer Olafur Eliasson, and the 5 masts represent Denmark as a seafaring nation. us, we have the Black Diamond, an extension of the Royal Library. It's called the Black Diamond because when the sun shines on the facade just right, it sparkles like a diamond. However, this very seldom works, so right now it's just the black. And as you can see, there are people sitting right out to the harbor everywhere. It's actually illegal here in Copenhagen to make the harbor front private. It has to be accessible for the public. And of course, since a lot of people are sitting and sunbathing right by the harbor front, some people just do regular bathing by the harbor front. The Copenhagen harbor is clean enough to go swimming in, like 99% of the time. The other 5%, the sewers flood because of torrential rain, and then there's E. coli in the water. But it's fine. You'll probably be fine. There's like an app you can download that tells you if there's E. coli, and then if there's E. coli, this is a real life hack, don't go in the water. You'll get E. coli. But there's up to tens of thousands of people just lounging around by the water in the summer when it gets really hot. Architecture Center. This is ironic since it's been voted as Copenhagen's second ugliest new building.
I was wondering that myself. Yeah. Which is the ugliest then?
The ugliest is the new part of Østerport station. That's right near Castell if you want to take a small walk over there and point and laugh. And of course, mind the bridge. In front of us to the right, we have the old brewery built by King Christian IV. Remember him? The brewery was used to store beer for sailors in the Navy. And let me tell you, you had to store a lot of it. Each and every day, each and every sailor got 10 liters of beer. Back then the water wasn't safe enough to drink, so beer was even more necessary than it is now. I didn't mention losing all of our wars, right? That was not an exaggeration. It was all of them. But of course, in the olden days, even children drank beer. On a possibly unrelated note, Denmark is also the European champion of youth drinking. Go Denmark! Figure near here is what I'm trying to say. Also, neither the marble bridge nor the marble church are made of any significant amount of marble. To the left-hand side, we have the National Museum. This used to be the Princess Palace, but you have to move back into this palace. It's a very hard life being a prince. Inside the boat. And watch your head, of course. While we sail through, I can mention that the storm bridge isn't named after bad weather, but after a Swedish attack on Copenhagen. Denmark and Sweden have the world record for most wars fought between two countries. of us to the right, we have a large orange, mustard, ochre maybe? Let's go with mustard today. Building. This is Torvaldson's museum. Brad Torvaldson was a famous Danish sculptor who granted lived in Italy for most of his life. But he eventually returned to Copenhagen and died here in 1844. Torvaldson was also the only non-Catholic who's ever allowed to create a work of art for St. Peter's Basilica in Rome.
And he was renamed to what? He was renamed Bert Thorvaldsen. Excuse the noun. Yeah. He was named Alberto to honor the Italians. I heard that from a tour guide at the facility. So Rick is behind the blue.
Oh yeah, that's yeah.
See the hooks?
Yeah.
To the left-hand side, we have Gammelstrand, which means the old beach. This is the oldest part of Copenhagen, where the city originally began as a small fishing village. We now have a small stone statue of a fisherwoman to remember those days. Behind her, we have a big green statue of a guy on a horse. The guy in question is Bishop Absalon, who's said to have founded Copenhagen in 1167. It's not true, but that doesn't matter. You might see that he's holding an axe in one hand. That's because the bishop had read somewhere in the Bible that a priest may not slay another man with a sword. Easy. Use an axe. To the right-hand side, we have Christiansborg Castle, the third drop. Christiansborg was originally the royal residence, but it kept burning down, so they moved. And now we have our parliament and our Supreme Court here. The two instances of power aren't as important, apparently. There's a restaurant at the top, and it's okay, but it's quite expensive. You can also walk to the top for free. Advertised with having extra short Sunday services. To the right-hand side, we have what's left of Copenhagen's old stock exchange, which sadly burned down in April 2024. The stock exchange was only a couple of months from building, or from turning 400 years old. We will rebuild, though. That's what it says. Bygger up for a person, no matter what. The insurance company that insured the building is bankrupt now, but that's their problem, not ours. We have the central bank, designed by the famous Danish architect Arne Jacobsen. Now, I know I've talked about Copenhagen burning down and Christiansborg burning down twice and the stock exchange burning down, and I get it if you were worried that the whole city is just moments away from bursting into flames. However, you can calm your fears. You don't have to worry at all. The central bank will not burn down. It is full to the brim with asbestos. here you can get really drunk and then rent a kayak. And now, in my opinion, the buildings aren't really that interesting, so I'll go through the boat and see if you have... No. Second of all, that's not even how you kiss. What would that even look like? Third of all, it's obviously a metaphor. I don't even want to discuss this. It's a metaphor because the first time the bridge was built, the two halves didn't quite meet. And so the company that was building it, of course, went bankrupt. And then we couldn't figure out who's going to pay for it. So I just said, I'm finished, for many years. 2 tons needed. Ridiculous. In front of us, we have the opera, which was built in 2005 and donated to the city of Copenhagen by Max McKinney. At the time, it was the world's most expensive opera, but Larsen was far from satisfied. He famously complained that the facade looks like a toaster. It's nice though. And Minecraft. We are now sailing behind Hotman. Hotman is this series of artificial islands that were built over 300 years ago as a base for the Danish Navy. However, the Navy has since moved out of town. So while they still have a presence here, it's now mostly a place for artist collectives and very expensive apartment buildings. Apropos very expensive apartment buildings, Tutu complains about the noise, I'll shut up for the next while. But don't worry, I'll be back before you can miss me. Outside we have the old torpedo boat home, which was used for the repair and upkeep of torpedo boats. But when the Navy moved out, it was remade into an apartment building at the Danish architecture studio in Kunsten. The canal in the middle and the steel beams are both original features. To the right-hand side, we have a bunch of trees. But behind them, guys, I promise, it's like really cool. Behind them, we have the free town of Copenhagen. Copenhagen was established in the 70s when a group of hippies and university students occupied an abandoned military barracks at Copenhagen and created their own society. They had their own rules and laws, their own cafes and restaurants, even their own child care. And for many years, the government let it pretty much do its own thing as a kind of social experiment. But then, drugs. You can imagine the rest. to the left-hand side, we have the cannon boat sheds. The cannon boat sheds were built after the Napoleonic Wars, where the British had completely obliterated our navy and forbidden us from building a new one. Our brilliant solution to this was, what if we just have a bunch of really small boats? What if they're just really small and we hide them inside the cannon boat sheds and they have a huge cannon on top, but the boats are really small, and then they won't even notice them because they're so small and tiny and you don't even see them. Shockingly, this was a bad idea and led to one of the most humiliating and deadly military defeats in Danish history when we tried to take back Bornholm. And believe you me, I don't say that lightly. We've had a couple of them. This one's up there. But we still have the sheds, and we can use them for kayak storage. So, who cares about how many men died? Silver linings. Think positive. Thomas Blackman, hvor det der husbåd, der er tættest på os. Jeg ved, Thomas Blackman, og hvad er han kendt for? Han er skattet, og det var det, tror jeg. Yeah. Just a internal Danish joke about the biggest pop star we have. Bjarke Ingels, the famous architect, lives in the houseboat to the left, wooden also, which means the belly goes. To the right-hand side, we have a large British naval ship. This is the frigate Hyllekamp. Hyllekamp was commissioned by the Navy in the 60s, and it was its pride and joy until a fateful day in 1982 when it accidentally fired a missile into a summer house area in northern Zealand. Thankfully, no one got hurt under the episode, which was later known as Halsamissigu, the Oopsie missile. Approaching the statue of the Little Mermaid, which illustrates Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale of the same name. The story tells us of Neptune's daughter who falls in love with the prince on land, gives her voice to a sea witch so that she too may live on land with him. The statue is donated to the city of Copenhagen by Kat Jacobsen, the son of the founder of Carlsberg Breweries in 1913, after he had seen The Little Mermaid as a ballet. In fact, the statue is meant to resemble the ballerina who played the Little Mermaid, but she reckoned this was just a trick to get to see her naked, so she'd only agree to model with her face. From the neck down, the sculptor Ulven Eriksen's wife. Throughout the years, the Little Mermaid has been through quite a bit. Speaking of necks, she's been beheaded twice. The first time the head was never recovered, so a new one had to be made. She's also had her right arm sawn off and blown up, and then dressed in both a bikini and a burqa. In front of us to the left we have a large gray triangular building. Did I already talk about this one? Yes, perfect. You can see there's smoke coming out of the chimney because here in Copenhagen, was the gas burned smoke. And on the switch side we have this. Water plane there will fly you almost Denmark's second largest city. Or you can do a 15-minute tour of Copenhagen for the low, low price of 110 euros. To the left-hand side, we have a small green area with cannons and a flying flag. This is the Battery Sixtus, named after King Christian VI, who built it as part of Copenhagen's original fortifications. Every morning and every evening, a cannon salute is fired from here in honor of the Danish flag. It's supposed to be every sunrise and sunset, but look, Denmark is pretty far up north. In the summer, the sun rises at like 4 o'clock in the morning. No one needs to be awake that early.